Welcome to the April 10th, 2024 Licensing Committee meeting. My name is Sung Oh, Chairperson of the committee. Before we convene, I'd like to remind everyone present that the board is a consumer protection agency charged with administering and enforcing pharmacy law. Where protection of the public is inconsistent with other interests sought to be promoted, the protection of the public shall be paramount. As I facilitate this meeting, I will announce when we are accepting public comment. I have advised the meeting moderator to allow 3 minutes to each individual providing comments. We'll begin with public comments for individuals attending in person in Sacramento, if there's any, followed by public comments by individuals participating via WebEx. This approach is necessary to facilitate this meeting. Before we get started, I would like to ask staff moderating the meeting to provide general instructions on the process for providing public comment via WebEx. Moderator?
Absolutely. As stated before, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 10-second warning before your time expires. When the time comes, we're going to display a public speaking notice on the screen, and we're going to ask everyone to raise their hand. You can find the hand button at the bottom of your screen if you're using a desktop computer. For dial-in users, you'll need to dial *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, you have 3 different screens and only one of them has a hand button. So you may need to hit the ellipses button, that ... at the bottom, in order to find the appropriate screen with your hand. All right, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, David. I'd like to take a roll call to establish a quorum. Our Vice Chair Chandler, Trevor Chandler.
Here.
Hi, good morning, Trevor. Renee Barker.
Good morning, licensee member present.
Good morning, Renee. Jesse Crowley.
Licensee member present.
Good morning, Jesse. Jason Wise.
Public member. Morning.
Good morning, Jason. And I'm here. The quorum has been established. Thank you, everyone. We have a full agenda for our meeting today. It may go for a long day for everyone. Just to give you a heads up, we're planning to take a 15-minute break in the morning, at least a 45-minute lunch, and then we'll have to probably take another break in the afternoon just so that everyone has a little day planned. I ask everyone participating today to be respectful of the work before the committee today. We encourage participation by members of the public throughout our meetings at appropriate times. The committee respectfully requests that when comments are provided, they're done so in a professional manner, consistent with how the committee conducts its business. Finally, before we move to the next agenda item, I'd like to remind committee members participating via WebEx, which is all of us today, to please remain visible on camera throughout the open portion of today's meeting. If you need to or suspect to temporarily turn off your camera due to challenges with internet connectivity, please remember to announce the reason for your non-appearance when you turn off your camera. Although I understand that if your internet goes low, I guess your camera may just disappear. And in which case, I'm not sure, Corinne, what the proper procedure would be, but just to hopefully announce that situation upon your return. Not really sure, because if your internet is slow, your camera just goes away without us really knowing. We don't know how fast internets move. Anyway, moving on to next agenda item 2, public comment on items not on the agenda items for future meetings. I will ask the moderator to open the line for individuals to provide the opportunity to provide public comment. You're not required to identify yourself, but may do so. I'd like to remind everyone that the committee cannot take action on these items except to decide whether to place an item on a future agenda. Members, following review of the public comments for this agenda item, I will ask members to comment on what, if any, items should be placed on a future agenda. As a reminder, this agenda item is not intended to be a discussion, rather an opportunity for members of the committee and members of the public to request consideration of an item for future placement on an agenda, at which time discussion may occur. Are there any members in the public in Sacramento?
No one
Seeing
for public
none.
comment.
Thank you, Anne. Moderator, we're ready for public comment from individuals participating via WebEx.
All right, we are open for public comment via WebEx. Now is the time to raise your hand. If you'd like, please tap that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, if you can't find that hand button, please hit the ... and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We also have a Q&A button in the lower right-hand corner of the screen where you can type the word comment and we will address your comment. And first, we're going to call on Jackie Stover. Hold on just a moment. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 10-second warning.
Stover. I am a specialty pharmacist. I just wanted to say thank you to the Board of Pharmacy for your continued efforts in finding an author to sponsor the amended Business and Professions Code 4071.1 pertaining to the remote processing for 2025. If there's anything that we can do to help expedite this process, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Dr. Stover.
All right. Next, we're going to call on Keith Yoshizuka. Hold on just a moment, please. All right, Keith, we've sent you a request to unmute your microphone.
I apologize for the late request, but for tomorrow's Legislation and Regulation Committee meeting, I understand that the ADM self-assessment was sent back from the OL with some comments for revision. If at all possible, in the interest of transparency, I would like to have those comments made public so we can see and better educate ourselves so that when we make recommendations for things in the future that we can remain consistent with those desires. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And those are all of our requests for comment at the moment.
All right, thank you, David. Okay, members, any comments? Not just based on the comments, but also just any comments or any suggestions for our agendas for next meeting? Seeing none, we're moving on to agenda item 3, approval of January 22nd, 2024 committee meeting minutes. As we begin our discussion, I ask members if you have any questions or comments on the draft minutes from the meeting. I'd also entertain a motion if you believe such action is appropriate.
Move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chandler.
I'll
I'll
second
second
that
those.
motion.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you. I saw Jesse's and thank you, Renee. I see both of you unmute at the same time, so appreciate you guys. All right, with that, we're gonna go for public comment. Any public comment in Sacramento? And would you just let me know, in the interest of saving time, just to announce if someone is there making public comment?
Will
I'm
do.
going to
Thank
go
you.
for WebEx. Thank you. Going to WebEx, David.
Absolutely. We are now accepting public comment. Did I hear a motion?
Yes,
Not
motion
yet?
to approve.
Okay.
Motion
Okay.
to approve by Vice Chair Chandler and second by Jesse/Renee, but we're gonna just go with Jesse.
Thank you so much. We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment on the minutes or the motion, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, hit the ... if you're having trouble finding your hand button, the ellipses button. All right, we're going to take just a few seconds to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you. With a motion and second and the public comment, we're ready for vote. Trevor?
Yes.
Thank you, Trevor. Renee?
Yes.
Thank you, Renee. Jesse?
Yes.
Thank you, Jesse. Jason?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. And I vote yes, the motion passes. Next agenda item 4, presentation regarding pharmacy technician certification programs. As you may recall from our January meeting, the committee discussed pharmacy technician training programs, including employer-based training programs. We noted at that time what appeared to be great variability in the quality of employer-based programs and suggested perhaps the need of greater oversight of such training. Also, during the January meeting, we discussed work being performed by the DCA Office of Professional Examination Services, which is performing an occupational analysis for the board for the pharmacy technician licensure program. The results of this analysis may help inform the committee in its assessment of training program requirements moving forward. It was also during this prior discussion that members suggested it would be helpful to learn more about pharmacy technician programs and accreditation requirements. To that end, I'm very pleased to invite representatives from the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board and National Health Careers Association to provide presentations about their respective pharmacy technician certification programs. As members may recall, certification from either of these organizations is a pathway to licensure as a pharmacy technician in California. I'd first like to welcome Liza or Lisa, please correct me, Chapman, Dr. Lisa Chapman, PharmD, who is the Chief Professions Officer, and Levi Boren, who is the Chief Assessment and Credentialing Officer with the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board. Dr. Chapman and Dr. Boren, the floor is yours. Thank you for coming to us.
Good morning, everyone. Again, and it is Liza, so thank you for asking the pronunciation. But we are very grateful to have the opportunity from PTCB to share information about our credentials. So I'd just like to say thank you to the committee for extending the invitation to us. I'm going to try to share my screen, and give me one moment. Can you see my slides? Okay, very good. So how we would like to begin this morning is to provide you an overview of PTCB. We are the country's first and only nonprofit pharmacy credentialing organization for pharmacy technicians. We were established in 1995, and we are governed by 6 professional organizations. You will notice the 6 national and state pharmacy associations that are listed here, and the CEOs of each of these organizations represent PTCB's Board of Governors. We are, as a nonprofit organization, solely driven and focused by our mission, and our mission is to advance medication safety by credentialing pharmacy technicians to support pharmacists and patient care teams in all practice settings of pharmacy. To provide you an update on where we are with our numbers, these numbers are as current as the end of 2023, and I will note those in parentheses are specific to the state of California. But since the creation of the PTCB and the National Certification Exam in 1995, over 813,000 pharmacy technicians have earned the CPHT credential. Currently, we have around 292,000 pharmacy technicians that are certified through PTCB, and almost 20,000 of those identify as being from the state of California. In 2019, we launched our newest credential, which is the Advanced Certified Pharmacy Technician, and almost 1,700 technicians have earned that credential. And I'll share later on in the presentation how one goes about earning that specific credential. We have almost 1,600 certified compounded sterile preparation technicians since that program was established in 2017. And of our assessment-based certificate programs, over 13,000 certificates have been granted, and you'll see the numbers again for those in the state of California. At this time, I would like to give presentation to my colleague, Levi Boren, who will share specifics about the CPHT program.
All right, thanks, Liza. Appreciate it. So here you can see in this slide, this is a breakdown of the current pharmacy technician certification exam by content domain. The exam, if you're curious or not familiar with it, it's 110 minutes to complete 90 items, 80 of which are scored questions. And although you don't see math or calculations, those are embedded within the medication safety and the order, the medication, excuse me, the first one, and the order entry and processing domains here. And the more detailed content outline that goes into the various knowledge areas under each of these domains is publicly available on our website. We're happy to share that if that is of interest. And just another point of interest while we're discussing this, there are 2 methods right now to sit for the exam. There are 84 in-center test centers, right? You go in person in California, and you can also take the exam using a live remote proctored method. So those are the 2 different modalities we have to deliver the exam right now. Go to the next one, I think, Liza. We'll talk about the foundation for our pharmacy technician certification exam, which was a 2016 nationwide job analysis. And from time to time, every 5 to 8 years or so, we update that job analysis and make sure that our exam is currently reflecting entry-level pharmacy technician practice. We're currently in the process of doing just that. Just a few weeks ago, we closed data collection for our nationwide job analysis survey. I understand an effort similar to that, conducted by or directed by the board, is ongoing in the state of California. But for our effort, had about 13,000 total respondents, and just shy of 500 of those were pharmacy technicians in California. So we're currently still in the process of analyzing data. We expect that we'll have findings from this later this year. And assuming that those things all get approved by our certification council and go through the rest of the process that we have, we anticipate there could be some updates to the exam content, but probably not until year 2026. So still a bit out there. Need to give obviously enough time for all of our stakeholders and those who are developing curriculum and things like that to make necessary updates. Okay. We can go to the next one. In terms of qualifying to take the pharmacy technician certification exam and become a CPHT with PTCB, there are 2 pathways you see enumerated here. Primary pathway really is to select from one of a list of what we call recognized education or training programs. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So that we would call our primary pathway. Secondary pathway for technicians who are already experienced, but perhaps did not go to formal training early in their careers. They can qualify through an equivalent of a minimum of 500 hours of work experience. For both of these pathways, though, the knowledge that we require is the same. So the requirements that we have of these recognized education programs, they have to include certain knowledge in their curriculum. And of the work experience, we also expect that those same things were covered, although covered on the job in that pathway. Those are the 2 there. We go to the next one. Talk about those recognized education training programs. So I mentioned that there are these knowledge requirements to become a recognized education program. Beyond our content outline for the PTCE, which we kind of looked at a summary of that a few slides ago, we have a document we call our knowledge reference, which includes not only the material that's going to be covered on the PTCE exam, but also some additional information that we require be covered in, again, either the education or the work experience, as well as some items that we feel are recommended. So that's a publicly available document. We're happy to provide it if it's of interest to this committee. Among these recognized education programs, I'll just call out, we've got there on the slide 167 in the state of California. There are also additionally 68 which are online or distance programs, which would also be available to technicians in California. So 235 there is the total for these that are relevant to technicians in California. Only a few of those really are ASHP or ACPE accredited or ABHES accredited. It's in the low 20s. I'm sure of the number for ASHP, it's 21. I'm not sure for ABHES, it's probably a few more on top of that, but still the minority of the total programs available. Important distinction to draw here, we do not hold our recognition out there as in any way equivalent to accreditation. Just to be clear on that, it's accreditation represents a much more in-depth and as a result expensive process for that. But all the accredited programs we recognize by virtue of that. For the other programs who wish to become recognized, we have a process whereby the program director has to submit some information, and then we conduct random audits to check for compliance with our requirements and quality and things like that. Okay. We can go to the next one, Liza. And this just shows you that in terms of that total number of recognized education programs, there are all types of programs, right? We have what you might think of as formal type of programs that are associated with a school, be it community college, college of pharmacy, something like that. Many employer training programs, which could be within community pharmacy, could be within a hospital system or health system. And then we have CTE, VOTEC programs, which are geared for those high school students or those in the military. So any of these types of programs can become recognized and indeed are recognized, assuming they meet all the requirements. And then last slide that I will cover here before I turn the time back to Liza, just to kind of show you how California compares in terms of pass rate with our national pass rate on the PTCE exam. It's very, very similar, 21, 22, hardly difference, maybe slightly more with 23, but really not to the degree that we would see that as an issue or anything like that. It's kind of nationwide, that pass rate has dropped a percentage point. We're having conversations with a lot of the program directors for these recognized education programs, try to get a better sense of how things are going, especially post-COVID. The state of many learners in these programs is, there are some challenges there that are, I think, unique post-pandemic. So, all right, I think you can take control back, Liza.
Thank you, Levi. And just for the next few moments, I would just like to describe some of the different findings that PTCB has found for the value of pharmacy technician certification. In 2022, we conducted our own workforce survey of both certified and non-certified pharmacy technicians. And we found that PTCB certified technicians are staying with their employers longer. Of those that are employed in their current jobs for 6 or more years, 43% reported that they were certified through PTCB, where 13% were uncertified. Pharmacy technicians are 14% more likely to stay in their career if they are certified through PTCB versus non-certified. And 61% of technicians say that they earned the credentials to advance their pharmacy careers. In another study that we have access to from 2020, pharmacists are observing and claiming that they see that technicians have greater professional commitment, greater knowledge about the profession and socialization of it, and greater professionalism, maturity, and self-identification among certified technicians. Based on data that we have received recently from the National Student Clearinghouse, there's a strong correlation that pharmacy technicians that have earned their PTCB credentials have an increased earnings over time. And lastly, according to some ongoing research that we are working with, certified technicians have a positive predictive validity to improving the safety of community pharmacies. In this specific example, where certified technicians were asked to gain pediatric weights, we've seen an increase in safety in those pharmacies. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we do have a number of credentials at PTCB. We have 3 credentials specifically, and this slide demonstrates the different badges that pharmacy technicians can earn. The first 3 badges are the Certified Pharmacy Technician credential that probably most of you are familiar with, the CPHT Advanced credential that was launched again in 2019, and the Certified Compounded Sterile Preparation Technician program that was launched in 2017. And then the other badges that you see represented there are the 11 assessment-based certificate programs. And how those are of importance is technicians earn those in order to earn the CPHT Advanced credential. So what are the requirements for a technician to earn this advanced credential? 1, they must be active through an active PTCB CPHT, so have earned their national certification through PTCB. They have to have completed at least 4 of the assessment-based certificate programs or have earned the CSPT credential plus 3 of the assessment-based certificate programs and have had at least 3 years of work experience in the past 8 years. And for pharmacy technicians that have the CPHT advanced credential, they are required to earn 5 more hours of continuing education credits every 2 years to maintain their certification. So again, thank you very much to the committee and to the board staff for extending the invitation to Levi and I to present to you this afternoon. And we're now happy to entertain any questions that you may have about PTCB.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chapman and Dr. Boren. Members, any questions or comments for our presenters from PTCB?
President, oh, I have a question.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Chandler.
Yeah, I'm curious about your compounding technician certification. That's something that the board has been dealing with a lot in recent years, and given the kind of dynamic nature of that part of the pharmaceutical industry. So I would love to hear your thoughts on how your certification has changed, adapted to the kind of the ongoing dynamics we see in the compounding industry.
I'm happy to speak to that a little bit. Obviously, some of the changes that USP has been working on for a number of years, finally going into effect, definitely caused us to make some changes. If you compare where we are now to where we are in 2017. As our other true certification in terms of our credentials, right? We have the CPHT and then we have CSPT. So we have a committee that of expert technicians and pharmacists that get together regularly and discuss these things, review the exams before they get published to make sure they're still relevant, things like that. So that's sort of at a general level. But if you if there's something more specific in terms of practice changes, let us know. I might be able to speak to that a little more directly.
Okay, thank you. Any other member questions? Okay, seeing none. Thank you so much. So just as a public agency, the committee provides members of the public the opportunity to comment on each agenda item. This is not intended to be a question and answer question, but rather an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the information discussed. At times, questions are asked, and you are under no obligation, but you are more than welcome to respond if you would like. With that, are there any members in public in Sacramento? I don't see anyone, so I'm going to move to WebEx.
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on the presentation, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding that hand button, please hit the ellipses button, that ... at the bottom, in order to find your hand button. We're going to take just a few seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment. Wait, hold on just a moment. Stephen Gray, bear with us just a second. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much. My question is about cost. We know that there is a shortage of pharmacy technicians now. It seems that anything that may increase the cost of a person becoming a pharmacy technician, for an example, many employers that do have good programs, that doesn't cost the employee anything. Employees graduate from being a pharmacy assistant to a pharmacy technician by going through those programs. I think it's important for the board members to know that what the cost is for PTCB certification, for what is the cost of taking the exam, what is the cost of participating in one of the recognized training programs, and what is the cost on an ongoing basis of completing the required continuing education. So I think that that should be presented now to the board so they can understand the possible impact of cost on the availability of pharmacy technicians. Thank you.
Thank you for the comment, Dr. Gray.
And those are all of our requests for comments.
Dr. Chapman, Dr. Boren, feel free to answer if you are okay. And I would love to also hear it if that's okay with you.
Certainly. And I would always direct someone to the ptcb.org website, but the cost for the national certification exam is $129. To maintain that certification every 2 years is the cost of $55. And then for the assessment-based certificate programs, the cost of each of those exams is $89. I'm not able to speak to the cost of the required education, as that is specific to each of the recognized education training programs. And then the cost for the CSPT exam is $149 plus a $50 application fee. So again, all of those prices are noted on the PTCB website.
And I would thank you, Liza. And I would just add that we've been very conscious of technician pay and things like this. The cost for the PTC exam, I think it's been the same for about 15 years, right? So really trying to hold those costs down where we can for technicians.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you again for the information. Really appreciate your time. Thanks, guys. All right, now I'd like to welcome Jessica Langley, Executive Director of Education and Advocacy for the National Health Career Association. Jessica Langley, the floor is yours.
This is the moderator. Jessica, you may need to dial *6 in order to unmute. Looks like your microphone is open. You are now muted. *6 again, please. Jessica, are you with us? I can hear that there's an open microphone, but we can't hear you speaking. Looks like you may be connected by phone and computer at the same time. Hold on just a moment. We're still working on it. Hang on, please. All right. I've got an improvement. Jessica, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome, everyone. Appreciate the opportunity to be with you today. My name is Jessica Langley. I am the Executive Director of Education and Advocacy for the National Health Career Association, in which we offer the exam for Certified Pharmacy Technicians, or the EXCPT. If you want to go to the next slide. I am going to do just a quick overview, but go through this very quickly just to respect everyone's time. Next slide, please. NHA is part of a larger organization called Ascend Learning, where we look to change lives by and through data-driven educational solutions, along with certifications that help impact job readiness, employment success, and employee retention. And we do that in various forms through skills development, assessment, analytics, and digital content. Next, please. This is just a quick view of the brands that are supported within Ascend Learning, and you will see that National Health Career Association falls within our healthcare arm. Next slide. And just together, we want to make sure that you understand that NHA supports a variety of allied health professions, including pharmacy technicians. We look at their needs to help support them through learning resources, credentialing, and career resources to guide them through their entire learning and career life cycle. Next, please. I do think it's important to know that NHA has been in existence since 1989 and have been working with over 2,600 schools that train allied health credentials. We also work with over 800 healthcare employers to help them either create programs, do continuing education, or certify their employees. And with that, we have awarded over 1.3 million certifications throughout our existence. And ultimately, through certification, we're looking to help drive positive outcomes for patients. Next, please. So just our vision and mission here, really, it's about empowering people to access a better future. And in that, as we partner with schools and employers, we want to help them elevate their programs, deliver better education and learning outcomes for students so that they can be career ready or job ready. But we don't stop there. We want to also help and assist our learners even beyond school through their careers, advocating and guiding them on a path to help succeed and grow their full potential, ultimately.
We lost her.
Jessica, we think you went back on mute. The last word we heard was ultimately.
We can help. Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, you left off with ultimately.
Sorry. Yes, ultimately, our work is to help lead to better and safer patient care. Next, please. So we, as mentioned, we are designed to help organizations address their challenges in a variety of ways. We have multiple solutions, as you can see here: learning and assessment resources, credentialing. We help with onboarding and retention for healthcare employers, and then also professional development. Obviously, today we're focused on the credentialing aspect with the EXCPT exam, and that is an exam that is NCCA accredited to ensure competency and high quality insurance. Next, please. Our approach to driving better outcomes comes through ensuring that our candidates that are successful on our exams are job-ready professionals. We support that through superior customer experiences, actionable analytics, data, and reporting for our customers so they understand where learners are achieving or underachieving. And through this, our solutions and resources are designed by subject matter experts and industry leaders. Next, please. This is just going through our approach to learning, coming up through the learning kind of element, applying the learning, assessing it, and then achieving success externally as practice-ready professionals. Next, please. All right, to get into some of the specifics for the EXCPT, next, please. I will share with you some industry insights and research that we have around the profession and also around certification. So to note, it's important to show we do annual surveys to allied health employers, and we publish them in our Industry Outlook study. And this year, we are seeing that a large percentage of organizations or employers are requiring certification for their pharmacy technicians. We also see that 83% of individuals that are hiring candidates, they want someone that has certification. They're more likely to certify them at 83%. We're also seeing that 74% of institutions increase their pay when an employee or a candidate has professional certification. Something else to note is that in screening criteria for jobs, certification is the leading criteria that they look at 76%. Then they are looking at state licensure next, along with if they've completed a training or educational program. And another one to note is that 64% employers report that newly certified pharmacy technicians are prepared to do their jobs. Next, please. We'll move on to some pharmacy tech industry insights. If you move to the next slide. So I will share with you some EXCPT exam data. We can start in the bottom left-hand corner that shows you California-specific exams and the year and those numbers over the last 5 years. In addition, each year we publish our pass rates for our examinations along with the percentage. So if you see in the red box on the right-hand side, we currently have 41,000 active EXCPT cert holders. Last year, we administered almost 16,000 exams and a pass rate of 63%. And then in the top, the largest box, you can see the historical data. These are exams year over year for the past 5 years. Next slide, please. All right, so this is going to kind of walk through our exam evaluation and review process. As mentioned previously, the EXCPT does maintain NCCA accreditation, and we gained that initial accreditation and have maintained that since May of 2008. In alignment with accreditation, similar to PTCB, we go through the process of completing job task analysis. Our last JTA was done in 2023, so just recently. We wrapped that up at the end of last year. With that comes a nationwide industry survey. We also do a standard setting survey and then produce an executive summary of the changes for that. Moving through the process, once we have that, we will publish a test plan or exam blueprint We are expecting to release the new blueprint in April of this year, just later this month. In order to access the existing or current one, you can see there is a link to NHA's candidate handbook that can be found on our website. Following the test plan, internally, we update our preparation resources so that we are able to publish those and provide those to our customers. We anticipate that our new preparation resources will be updated and available in Q4 of this year, and that includes online study guides, practice exams, in addition to the data and analytics reporting that is paired with that. And then finally, a new exam will be released. We're anticipating Q1 2025. Again, that's offered through PSI testing centers, along with live remote proctoring, and at our approved customer testing sites. Next slide, please. This shows you an example of our current test plan that, again, can be found on our website. But I did want to give kind of a first look at some of the changes or edits or revisions or recommendations that came out of our last JTA. I won't hit all of these, but just a few. We are looking at expanding the area of controlled substances in relation to laws, regulations, and processes regarding transferring patient prescriptions between pharmacies. We are adding a new knowledge area pertaining to drugs and drug therapy regarding basic pharmacotherapy for common acute and chronic disease states. Expanding the area of frequently prescribed medication in relation to basic drug interactions. Adding some, expanding some areas on preparing and dispensing process. Creating a new knowledge area with calculations in relation to package size calculations. We are also creating an area within sterile and non-sterile products, compounding unit dose and repackaging in relation to characteristics of sterile and non-sterile compounds. And then, of course, we are creating an area in relation to medication and patient safety and quality assurance with a focus on errors. Next slide, please. I'll move pretty quickly through these as well, but just introducing the preparation resources and giving transparency to some pricing for our support resources. Those costs are listed there. We will have new prices as of July 1, 2024. And currently the EXCPT exam price is $125. Next slide, please. Just a bit on recertification. I believe these requirements are the same as PTCB. Certifications are every 2 years. They require 20 hours of continuing education with at least 1 hour in patient law and patient safety. Next slide, please. And this just wanted to highlight ways that NHA is providing support. If you move to the next slide, you'll see various examples listed here of our customer support center, a newsletter that we send out quarterly. We have a job board that we offer to our candidates to assist, some great content as well, in addition to ongoing on-demand and live webinars to help candidates understand more about certification, the value of certification, and then maximizing the resources available to them and to prepare successfully for certification. Next slide. And lastly, just want to give visibility, if you go to the next slide, to our learning resources. As mentioned, we support learners throughout the entire learning life cycle or their learning and career journey. So you can see listed here, we have Personability, which is a professional skills simulation. We have Pharmaseer that comes with a pre-assessment and meets ASHP didactic and simulation requirements. We have a supplemental resource of Pharmaseer Math that goes through all the multiple methods for dosage calculations. And then our online study guides and practice exams, our exam, and the data and insights reporting. Next slide, please. Just a little voice of the customer here in terms of our facilitation of learning, assessment, remediation, and our administration of materials. And then next slide. Happy to also answer any questions that you all might have, and I appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much for the information, Ms. Langley. Members, do you have any questions or comments for Ms. Langley?
Mr. President, no, I have a couple questions.
Go ahead, Trevor.
Going back to your slide that had all the pass and clearance rates, I noticed that Farm Techs had the lowest pass rate. I was wondering if you had any thoughts on why that might be.
I don't. Normally we see numbers dip like that when we release a new exam. So it's something that we're certainly looking into and doing evaluations within each of the domains. We're hoping that that will actually increase with better alignment through a JTA to understand and validate that we're aligning with industry standards. So that's one thing, is going through the process and releasing a new exam, but also just evaluating the domain areas to see which are weak, and then working with our individual clients to help them have success through implementation of preparation resources and practice exams.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed on this slide was the spike between 2022 and 2023 of exam attempts. Do you have any thoughts on why there was like such a significant increase between 2022 and 2023? Does that show more folks coming in the pharmacy or pharmaceutical or pharmacy tech pipeline? Anything like that?
Yes, so I do think that is evidence of a couple of different things. One, it could be around just the push for certification, around understanding the value of certification, state licensing requirements that have certification as a requirement as well. But we are seeing an uptick in customers, which means that's schools, hospitals, retail pharmacies, et cetera, but more so in our career and technical education space, looking to offer pharmacy technician programs to meet demands and needs in their areas. So we have seen an increase in programs being offered through our customers, hence an increase in the number of exams that we are offering as well.
Got it. So it's not necessarily an increase in the folks entering the job market in pharmacy. It's more just the greater demand of existing pharmacists looking to get certification.
I think it's probably both.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Trevor. Thank you for Ms. Langley. Any other member questions or comments? Okay, and with that, as public agency, Ms. Langley, the committee provides members of the public the opportunity to comment on each agenda item. This is not intended to be a question and answer period, but rather an opportunity for members of the public to comment on the information discussed. At times, questions are asked, and you're, again, no obligation to respond, but you are more than welcome to. Are there any public comment in Sacramento? Seeing none. Moderator, if you could please open the line for public comment in WebEx.
We are once again open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand. And for our mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding that hand button, please hit the ellipses button, that ... at the bottom, in order to find your hand button. We also have the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. If you need to, if you're having trouble with the hand button, please type the word comment, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. We're going to take just a couple of seconds now to see if we have a request for public comment. Seeing no request for public comment, do you wish to continue?
Yes, please. Thank you, David. Thank you for the presentation, everyone. Bringing the discussion back to the committee. Are there any final thoughts for members before we move on to the next agenda item? All right, we're moving on. Thank you. Thank you, David. Please make sure our presenters are moved back to the attendees. I would really appreciate it. And moving on to agenda item 5, presentation by the American Society of Health System Pharmacists regarding Technician Training Program accreditation. The meeting materials detail several relevant sections of pharmacy law, including California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1793.6, which specifies that a pharmacy technician training program approved by the board for purposes of licensure as a pharmacy technician includes a training program that is accredited by the American Society of Health System Pharmacists, or ASHP. As I mentioned under the last agenda item during the January meeting, members indicated that a presentation on the pharmacy technician training accreditation program would be helpful. I would like to welcome Lisa Lifshin, Senior Director of Pharmacy Technician Accreditation and Residency Services with the Office of Accreditation Services with the ASHP to the meeting to provide us with a presentation on accreditation program for pharmacy technician training programs. Dr. Lifshin, please correct Ms. Lifshin if the pronunciation, please correct me. The floor is yours. Thank you. Again, I note that she is muted.
This is the moderator. We're sending Lisa a request to unmute the microphone. Oh. Right, bear with us just one moment. All right, Lisa, I've got some visuals on the screen for you.
I'm going to blame the solar eclipse on this today, this weird technical challenges that everybody's facing.
I'm pretty
Okay.
sure Mercury is in retrograde as well. So
All right, I see your hand is up, but you're still showing as muted. We're sending you a third request to unmute.
Control N. Here we go. Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
indeed.
Oh, terrific. Please excuse my technical difficulties today. I'll tell you about mine today. I got up, everything was fine, and then the electricity was gone in my condo. I'm going to put my hand down too. So, and it won't go down. Well, things will get better as the presentation goes on. How about that? It's not going down. Is that aggravating you? Lower hand, come on, control.
Your hand is lowered for our end, Lisa, so you're good to go. And even
Okay.
if it is up, it's okay. You can have your hand up the whole presentation.
Okay. Oh, here we go. It's off now. Okay. Would you like me to advance the slides or would you like me to ask you to advance them? How would you like to do this?
Whatever your preference, right now we're advancing the slides.
Perfect. Let's go with that. Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me today. It's a pleasure to speak with the group on ASHP ACPE accreditation for pharmacy tech education and training programs. It's a really exciting time for us and for you in the profession. I think COVID has change the workforce situation for pharmacy technicians. As you know, I'm not telling you anything that's a surprise to you, and it's certainly been a different landscape for us as well. Can you advance this slide, please? Okay. You can advance again. Okay, we've had a collaboration with ACPE. We now have ACPE as a designation for us. ASHP has been accrediting tech programs since the 80s on a volunteer basis. And, you know, in the past, everyone really saw this as an ASHP endeavor, and they thought of it as a hospital technician program accreditation, but it really wasn't that. It was for everyone. So NABP requested that ACPE participate in the process. So we formed a collaboration in 2013. ACPE looked at our standards, guidelines, and procedures, and they agreed with them. And we formed this great collaboration and started working together on this since then, and formed a group called the PTAC, the Pharmacy Tech Accreditation Commission. And that group ensures the quality of pharmacy tech training and accreditation, and writes the standards for approval by all of you. You get the opportunity to comment on those standards. And this is the year that we'll be revising the standards as well. So we'll be looking to you and all of the boards of pharmacy and all of our other stakeholders, including our accredited programs, those seeking accreditation, and anyone that really wants to comment on these standards. So this year's busy for us. We meet in May, and we meet, so we're coming up on this, and we meet in October, and those actions go both to the ASHP boards and the ACPE boards for approval. So it's a pretty extensive process. Accreditation is the seeking of quality. It's a peer review quality process for the safety of the public. So we really take that seriously. Many of you may know ASHP because you have residency programs at your facilities. So we use the same process for our tech programs as we do for our tech and residency programs. So we have about 250 programs in different modalities of education and training. We have distance programs, which several now, more than we had before, and that's a positive thing for you because we can train more technicians that way. That the number can be endless in that fashion. We have more hospital programs in the mix because they really see job satisfaction and longevity from technicians that go through their programs, and they can recruit students and usually people that they hire to go through the programs from the outside, from people that already work within their institutions. And we've surveyed our programs, and longevity, job satisfaction, ability to go through to develop career ladders to sustain these individuals. And that's been great. We currently have 30 programs of our 250 in health systems and hospitals, and also in the large groups where they have programs throughout the country in their health systems at this point, and 12 of them are new this year. So we see larger growth. We also have been developing, and it'll come out in a few months, a toolkit for health systems, and we hope to expand that for other areas too, for hospital administrators. It could be in a chain or in a retail pharmacy or any other community college, any type of training environment to provide to their administration to help support why they should have a program and how to start a program and to substantiate the reason to have a program. Next slide, please. Next slide. Would you like me to advance it? Next slide, please.
Should it be helpful, the slide that we're looking at is guidance document?
Oh, so I don't see it. I'm sorry. So we have several tools. I'm sorry. I have since I'm upstairs because I'm not in my condo, I'm slow. So the guidance document, we have several tools available. You have to excuse me. And this is our website on the ASHP website. We have how to start a program, starting the program, and that gives all of the fees, a directory that includes all of our programs, talking about our commission. This box here includes the guidance document, the standards of guidance document. I'm very sorry. The guidance document, technical difficulties, and that is really sort of the teacher's edition, and it goes with our standards, and that provides you everything we're looking for on a review with each of the key elements and standards. Next slide, please. I truly apologize. Is the next slide that you see all of the boxes on our website? Because I'm still seeing the guidance document.
It's starting a pharmacy technician education and training program.
Okay, and that's all of the boxes on the slide. Is it a blue? Okay, next slide, please. Okay, do you have the next slide up there that's blue? Thank you. Yes, with all the boxes. So that's the slide that's really with all the blue boxes. This is on our website when you go to www.ashp.org and then you look for technician programs, you'll see all of this. And you can also contact me at ASHP and I can help you with this on our website. You would, on the top bar, you go to professional development and there's a drop down for technicians, and you can go to this. So in this accreditation standards, I'm going through this pretty quickly because I really want to tell you about, in the essence of time, about the entry level programs. But this is where you can find our standards, regulations, the model curriculum, a variety of webinars that will help you to develop your program and learn about the standards. Next slide. We have also applying for accreditation. The next slide, please. Are you on a next slide and I just don't see it?
We're on
I'm
model
sorry.
curriculum.
Okay, model curriculum is one of the tools, and that provides a variety of things that will help you to provide activities to each of the different key elements. Next slide, please. Have you lost? Okay, these are the standards. Next slide. I can see you're losing me. I can see it on my screen that I'm losing connection. I'm very sorry. Are you still on Know the Standards?
Starting a pharmacy technician, number 3.
Okay. I think I'm going to, you know what? Let's not go through the slides because it'll be faster. Is that okay with you? And I can provide you some information and maybe you can share these slides with the group. It might be better. Oh, they're moving. Okay. So starting a program, and we can go to the next slide.
We're back to the boxes.
Okay. So starting a program provides you all of the fees for accreditation, the different types of programs, and you can see that on our website. A basic program to start a program, $775 for the application fee. And if you have one program at your site, it's $3,100 a year for the program. And that includes coming out for a review with 2 surveyors, a lead surveyor and a practitioner surveyor. And we come out every 6 years. We come out and do a thorough review of your program and look at all of your paperwork and provide consultation and look at your reports periodically. And it goes through the accreditation process through the PTAC and our boards. And we have sample forms for you and all the forms that you need to fill out and all of those things. Next slide, please.
Types of pharmacy technician.
This is the important one, the one that you really want to know about. Next slide, please. There's 2 types of pharmacy tech programs, and I think that this is the take home. There are entry level and advanced level programs. The entry level programs are 400 hours in duration. The entry is just as it is. This is for a variety of contemporary settings. They're 400 hours of in duration for the training program, and they're shorter programs. The advanced are the technician trainee student learns more advanced level, more hands-on for a longer program. Generally, they're in technical schools, in community colleges. The entry level are in the retail setting, in the distance learning environment, in hospitals. Next slide, please. So if you start a program, I would suggest the entry level program because they're 8 weeks in duration or more. They're 300 hours, 120 hours in didactic, 50 in simulation, 130 hours in one externship rotation, and the other 100 can be in any of those three areas. They can be in the experiential, they can be, part simulation, part didactic. The advanced is an extra 200 hours over at least 15 weeks with 160 hours didactic, 40 more beyond the entry, simulation 50 beyond the entry, 200 hours. The big difference of simulation is they have to be in 2 different externship rotations, basically one hospital and one retail. And you can be creative with this. For instance, if you are in a retail or a hospital environment, they can work in the store. And those, you can pay them while they do their experiential hours, or you're training them or teaching them. We recommend at this point, we're rewriting the standard and looking at the different sequences right now. The didactic and simulation must be before experiential, but that doesn't mean that you can do you can still do block training where maybe teach something didactic and simulation and then have the experiential for what you taught and then do a next block and so on and divide it out. But we're looking at all of these different things from our experience. So, we ask for you to look at a quality assessment of the program. We're doing that at the same time to look at what's best for all of you out there in the critical staffing situation, by still being able to have a quality program and have graduates that are very capable for a safe environment and to provide services as technicians in your pharmacies. So this is something to really look at, and it's achievable. And the entry-level program for over an 8-week period, especially while they're working in the pharmacy, works out very well. Several programs add on. You can have an advanced level program from the beginning, but many have entry-level programs and then add on 200 hours, and their entry-level students can continue to an advanced level program, or they'll have one and then offer both. You can do a variety of things. Next slide. The standards, there are standards. Again, in the interest of time, because I know I lost some of this, there are standards. We look at a variety of different modalities. I'll go through them pretty quickly. In the standards, again, we're reviewing them now. We look at the NHA and the PTCB task analyses, and we write the standards not for today, but for the future. For example, in the standard that we're using right now, we added immunizations, we added medication reconciliation, a lot of automation, and it may not be what all technicians are doing, but it's a national standard. So anywhere someone goes, they would be able to know that this pharmacy technician went through an ASHP, ACPE accredited program, and they should know how to do these things. So, and in addition, for example, Virginia, the state of Virginia last year mandated that all technicians were required to go through an ASHP, ACPE accredited program. So we made sure to get people out there and review those programs very quickly to ensure that they met the regulations for their state. So we work with the states for their needs. So the next slide, please. So there are different competencies, 3 sections. Section 1 are the expectations, 1 through 5. 6 through 13 reviews the structure and process to promote achievement of the competencies, and section 3, the assessment of the standards and key elements, the quality and assessment of the students, or the students may be in your situation, your staff students. Next slide, please. The things that are in here, certain key elements are for entry, and then the add-ons are for the advanced in section 1, personal, interpersonal, the soft skills, foundational skills, processing and handling of meds, to name a few, patient care, regulatory and compliance. So when the things they learn are really consolidated areas that take a long time when you're training them in the pharmacy. They're learning this in this 8-week period. So it's a very compressed time where you get a very educated and trained technician that have these skills that you just expand upon when you have them as part of your staff, or you hire them when they've trained in another place. Next slide. Section 3, again, this just reminds you of the time frames for the different programs. Next slide, please. Section 2, the authority, but there are certain criteria to be a program director. Programs need to have a strategic plan, and we provide that on our website on how to do that. An advisory committee to ensure that the program has oversight. The curricular length, I can't stress that enough. Next slide, please. Again, I talk about this again, 1, experiential site for the entry level, and 2 for the advanced level. Standard 11 talks about recruitment, acceptance, enrollment, a lot of the paperwork issues to ensure that the student knows what they're responsible for, and what key things, to excel in the program. And also, that you're getting a technician that should be a technician at the same time. So you're spending time with them, and in the community college or tech college that they're recruiting students that should be in the program. Faculty instructor requirements, documentation requirements, assessment of the student. Next slide, please. Student learning assessments, program completion. These are all the things that we look at when we review the program, the structure. The next slide, that's for continuous quality improvement. So these are the different things that we look at on survey. But this is just really, in 10 minutes about the program. Generally, I do this presentation in an hour, but as your state embraces accredited program, completion of an accredited program, and I'd be happy to talk to anyone after this presentation that would like more information. Our website is quite robust on information that you can go to at any point, and we have a tech tablet that provides updates after each of our PTAC meetings on things we're discussing. But right now, I think the big thing is revising of the standards. It's something for you to keep an eye on our website, and that standard should be completed in the next year. Are there any questions that I can answer at this point in time? I apologize for these technical difficulties.
Thank you. Members, any comments or questions?
President, no, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah, and this, sorry, I hear an echo somewhere. But my question is, we've heard from a lot of accreditation programs today, all sound excellent. And this is kind of a question that I feel I should have asked the other two as well. In addition to the going through school and then getting licensed through the board in order to remain competitive, I imagine a lot of these pharmacy and farm tech students feel really that these accreditation programs are essential, and we've heard of varying levels of cost for each one. And on their own, they don't sound particularly burdensome, but when you start doing 1, 2, 3 levels of accreditation, I definitely see how the financial burden starts piling up. So my question is, do you know what, and again, this may be something to ask the other folks as well, whether it's online or offline, but to what extent do employers cover the cost of these accreditations, given how much benefit we've seen this brings to employers as far as the excellence from the pharmacy and farm tech community that these accreditations provide? I'm just curious of at what rate do employers cover the cost of these for their pharmacy employees?
That's a good question. Firstly, this is an accreditation of the program, and that's a very good question because at times people confuse the two. The other two speakers spoke of certification of individuals, and PTCB spoke of a recognition of programs. So they recognize programs, and they can expand on that a little bit too. They recognize in a different fashion. And Levi had discussed the fashion, how they review programs for recognition. And in accreditation, this is a more extensive process that the school, and we talk about when the hospital or a retail pharmacy, even though it's an employer, they're a school at that point. So they cover the accreditation fees. That's not transferred to the students at all in that situation. Frequently, the employer in that situation, the school will pay for their certification costs when they pass the classwork. Different employers do that. Some do, some don't. Some of the schools that I've reviewed will include one time to take the exam. And again, Jessica and Liza and Levi can discuss that probably more, because I'd imagine they ask that on their surveys too. They have a lot of that demographic information. But in my review from accreditation surveys, I do see that frequently because they see a value in that for their employees and their graduates to get certified. Several states require completion of an accredited program and certification and registration. So the enticement for employers to pay for that is there. Other states, it's different. I'm going off track a little bit, but the reason initially too that we went for the collaboration with ACPE is to go to all the boards of pharmacy to say, hey, we're going together, so they could see that the importance of, an accredited program by both groups, to see that and look at the package of completion of an accredited program, national certification and registration, and for employers to want that for them and increase wages for those that are pharmacy technicians and hopefully cover those fees for them. So that was the evolution in recognizing the value of a pharmacy technician and all of those things. So I hope that answers your question with a little more history and background. So I would imagine, and this is just a Lisa Lifshin answer, if anything, I would imagine with the shortage of pharmacy technicians that there may be more coverage of those professional fees of certification than before. I also review pharmacy residencies, and I ask those questions. What type of professional fees do you cover? And in different states that I didn't see before, they're covering it more than I used to see. But again, that's not everybody, just anecdotal.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Lisa. Any other member questions? Okay, as a public agency, the committee provides members of the public the opportunity to comment on each agenda item. Again, this is not intended to be a question and answer, but you are welcome to answer if you would like to. Anyone in Sacramento? I don't see anyone, so we're moving to WebEx.
If you'd like to make a comment via WebEx, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. For our mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding your hand button, please hit the ... that ellipses button at the bottom. And we also have the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner, and I see that Stephen Gray has requested comment. Hold on, Stephen. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 10-second warning before your time expires.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment. I have a lot of experience with ASHP residency programs. I don't have much experience with the ASHP pharmacy technician accreditation program for pharmacy technicians. But I think it's important to know. Sorry about the echo.
Ms. Lifshin, would you mind muting? Sorry, I think it's your microphone that's echoing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's better. For residency programs accredited through ASHP, the cost is in the tens of thousands of hours of paid pharmacist and administrative personnel just to create the program, to maintain the program, and then every so often to get reaccredited. It's extremely expensive to set up and maintain an accredited program. That's different from the certification programs that we heard this morning. Not only that, but for residents at ASHP, the residents themselves are employees. So for the year of residency that they're in, for a PGY1, postgraduate year one, they're paid pharmacists at a lower rate usually, and often I hear that for the technician programs, you also have to count that the employer has to pay those people to go through those 400 hours of training and all of the experiential rotations and so forth. So those are very expensive programs for employers to set up. And I am surprised to hear that Virginia or some other states require completion of an accredited program, because that would make a huge difference in the entry barriers to set up training programs and to get technicians, especially in a shortage period. So I think it's important for the board members to understand the cost differences to the industry, to the pharmacies, to the hospitals, et cetera, for maintaining an accredited program. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Dr. Gray.
Can I comment back at that, or?
Sure,
do
go
I have an
ahead.
opportunity? Yeah. Well, thank you for your comment, Dr. Gray, on that. The fees are less for the technician training programs. And as I had mentioned previously, there are different avenues to train the pharmacy technicians. They can train through, not necessarily at your site, and you can hire them from pharmacy technician training programs that you don't have at your site, like community colleges, distance learning, technical colleges. And you could be an externship site for them as well and hire them during that or after that and pay them and be a site that you review them. So that's an option as well. As far as developing the program, while there is a cost associated, there are proprietary products, so you don't have to necessarily develop them from the ground up. Granted, there is a cost with them. I won't say there isn't, and I don't advertise on any one specifically. There are different ones out on the market. The health system programs and the retail, some of the chains see value in the programs because they are getting a lot of staff that they wouldn't have before via the accredited programs or by developing a program. Virginia so far has been successful in that. They have I believe 25 programs, over 25 programs since between the legislation coming into effect and in process of being mandated, and they haven't backed down yet. But the training of the technician and the maintaining that the technician in the positions has certainly been longer than before. So I think that that's the value they see in them, and the value of not having the longer training period for the technician that they've had to expend fees for that, or
Thank you,
expenses
Ms.
for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, moving to next comment.
Next, we're going to hear from Mark Johnston. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hello, thank you, members of the committee. Mark Johnston here. I like to be a resource for the board and inform them what I see going on across the country at other boards of pharmacy. There are indeed 5 states that require ASHP training. One is Illinois, and they haven't written rules yet. It was just passed via statute, and so it's not in effect in Illinois yet. The rule that was written in Utah will become mandatory at the first of the year. So the rule is finalized, but it had a implementation date that allowed people to prepare. So, you know, arguably 2 of the 5 states, it's not implemented yet. It is implemented in South Dakota, Virginia, and Louisiana. Louisiana has had it implemented for several years and has realized that it is a barrier to entry and it's causing a technician shortage. So they have proposed a change that would remove their ASHP requirement in the name of getting, you know, applicants and technicians into the pharmacy, you know, bodies to work. Their draft language, which goes through about a year promulgation process, is on their website. Easy to Google up. I could certainly send it to the board and show, you know, basically all of the striking in their language. The Utah board has received numerous requests. I believe they said it was 40 requests to undo the ASHP requirement before it kicks in at the first of next year. And the board has discussed it at their last 2 meetings. They meet monthly. And there was ongoing discussion with the board, having a clear understanding, mainly from independent pharmacists, that you know, the ASHP requirement is a clear barrier to entry that's going to affect public safety. So anyway, I just wanted to report to the board what I see in other board meetings that I attend across the country. Thank you very much for the opportunity to comment.
Thanks for the comment, Mark.
And those are all of our requests for comment at the moment.
I do see Lori's hand is up. I don't know if Lori, you're trying to speak on this issue. I know she's a presenter, but I think she might be trying to speak as a public on this matter, David. But she is muted.
Lori, you have the ability to unmute at will.
Oh, thank you so much. Lori Wumsley on behalf of Walgreens. As one of the larger employers from the community-based sector in the state of California, as well as others, just wanted to provide some perspective of what we do for our employees. We do have an ASHP accredited training program. We also have a training program that we use to train some of our front-end team members that help to support our community pharmacies where that is allowed in states. We do encourage certification for all of our pharmacy technicians and do pay for the exam as well as the training time for our employees, as well as the recertification fees for our technicians. So we do certainly see a benefit in terms of turnover, the quality of technicians and things like that, and do support our team members to do this. So just to add some perspective, since Trevor Chandler asked that.
Thank you, Lori.
All right, and I think that's, wait, we've got another hand. Hold on just a moment. William Schimmel, I hope I've said that correctly. Please let us know how to pronounce your name.
And I want to disclose here, my name is William Schimmel. I'm the CEO of the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board. So I want to make sure it's appropriate for me to talk here. I'm not technically a member of the public, but I wanted to validate and answer Trevor's question from earlier that PTCV has a lot of data that indicates that employers, similar to what Lori just talked about, will train their technicians in-house. And it's good for the technician, it's good for the employer because it does lower the cost and it lowers the barrier to entry a little bit. And we see in our data nationally that one of the best ways to success with our certification process is when you are trained on the job. And those programs, some of them are accredited, some of them aren't. They really do run the gamut, but it does keep the costs for technicians down.
Thank you for the comments.
All right, and I think that's actually the last request.
Thank you, David. Okay, with that, Miss Lisa, do you have any final thoughts?
Mute. Not at this point. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them at a later time as well.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for your presentation. Just quick discussion back to members, as indicated in the meeting materials. At least what I'm thinking is that we might want to consider clarifying whether pharmacy-based technician training programs should allow participants who are currently not pharmacy technician trainee as defined in BPC 4038 to obtain practical experience in the same manner or similar manner as BPC section 4115.5. So this would require expanding the definition of pharmacy technician trainee, which I think that would allow more opportunity for pharmacy technician program training programs to be out there. So I'm wondering if members are agreeable. I don't need a vote, just wanting to get some confirmation that you are all agreeable, at least on that end, and I can work with the staff in developing some language for next meeting.
President O, this would be about expanding rather than narrowing the possibilities.
Yes, that's my intent, is to expand the definition of pharmacy technician trainee. Because currently that definition is very strict. It's only for vocational school. I cannot quote it, not a lawyer, but it's very strict. So I'm hoping to at least start with that and possibly get that into the sunset language. But
So
Renee?
just something I want to, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Trevor.
Oh yeah, just something I just want to confirm, not being the expert in this. So we're expanding the options for folks to choose from. We are not expanding a mandate on what folks have to do. We're just saying here's more of an option that you can do, correct?
That is, yes, for at least for what this section of the law. Renee?
Great.
Hi, Tom. This is Jesse.
So-
I think
sorry.
I'm
Go ahead,
I'm a
Jesse.
little confused on the intention of the expansion of the definition. Does that change essentially their roles and what they're able to do, or what is the ultimate goal? Just to allow for more programs?
I think my thinking is at least for more technician training programs to be able to utilize those trainees as a technician trainees so that they can get better education. And hopefully that will improve pipelines of pharmacy technicians out there. That's my thinking.
Okay. I'm not sure if I fully understand still expanding the definition of the trainee. Does that, or how that limits employers currently from
So my
having like a program.
Programs, employer-based training programs, is that it doesn't technically allow pharmacy technician trainees to be able to do anything that a pharmacy technician would be doing because of the definition. This is where, Anne, you can jump in, speak up. But so if we're able to expand the definition of that I believe would allow, would allow more programs to be able to train technicians for them to be able to actually have experience. And why don't you jump in on this matter? This is a little technical aspect.
Yeah, so the definition in the law defines a pharmacy technician trainee as a person who is enrolled in a pharmacy technician training program operated by a California public post-secondary education institution or by a private post-secondary vocational institution that's approved by the Bureau for Private Post-Secondary. So I think what the general thought behind expanding that is there are a variety of different types of training programs, but the law currently doesn't allow potentially those individuals completing like an employer-based training or one of the other ones that we've heard about today from working as a pharmacy technician trainee to gain some experience. So I believe the thought is, should the committee and the board consider expanding the definition so that individuals that are participating in other types of technician training programs can also avail themselves of the pharmacy technician trainee designation.
Got it. So that I'm understanding it, that technician trainee will be able to actually perform some hands-on technician duties. Is that correct?
Right, that's the intent, is my understanding. Okay, Renee?
Yeah, hello. Yeah, I would definitely support expanding that definition of the technician trainee to include pharmacy-based technician training programs in order to provide that option and for them to have, a better experience and as defined in the regulations. I think there just needs to be more options. And not a barrier to accreditation. I mean, I think accreditation is great, but I do think there are some quality programs that I've seen technicians come from that were pharmacy based. So, and then they can get their, other accreditation, not accreditation, the other certifications. So definitely support that.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you, Renee. Thanks, everyone. All right, we are at 10:49. We'll take 15-minute break and then we'll return. Sorry for the odd time. So 15 minutes, we'll return. 11:05. Let's do 11:05. So 11:05, we'll return. We'll see you back 11:05, starting with agenda item 6. Thank you, everyone. Okay, it's 11:05 exactly. Ready to take a quick roll call. I see Trevor. Trevor, are you back?
Yes, I am.
Thank you, Trevor. Renee? Renee? I don't see Renee yet. Jesse, I see you.
I am back.
Welcome back. Jason?
I'm here, son.
Okay, there's your camera. Okay, perfect. And Renee?
Hello, I'm back.
Hi, Renee. All right. Let's get started. Agenda item 6, discussion and consideration of survey results received related to pharmacist to pharmacy technician ratio. As you may recall, I previously shared my intention to focus committee discussion on strategic objective 1.3 related to exploration and pursuit of changes in law as appropriate for the authorized duties of a pharmacy technician. I note that an important first step in this evaluation included this committee convening listening sessions, gosh, that feels like forever ago, and soliciting feedback from licensees regarding potential changes. The results of these efforts were incorporated in Assembly Bill 1286, which became effective on January 1st of this year. During our October 2023 meeting, we initiated a review of the board's ratio requirement. The meeting materials detail the current law related to ratios. Members routinely receive public comment indicating that California has one of the most restrictive ratios. As a reminder, review of various state ratios does not necessarily provide an apples-to-apples comparison. as jurisdictions have varying approaches on provisions for services within a pharmacy, including where some jurisdictions require all pharmacy personnel to be licensed as a pharmacy technician if performing even functions such as data entry, or known as clerk typist in California. This is not the case in California. I am again highlighting this only to remind us for discussion today that when comments are provided, context matters. The meeting materials highlight a few approaches taken by various states. During the January meeting, we reviewed and approved a draft survey to solicit feedback from pharmacists on this topic. As noted in the meeting materials, the survey was released March 6th and ended March 25th. During the survey period, over 5,100 responses were received. That's pretty remarkable response considering we have about 50,000 pharmacist licensees licensed in California. We are very fortunate to have an extremely engaged licensee population. And again, thank you everyone very much who participated in the survey. Today, we will learn about some of the results of the survey. I'd like to thank board staff and experts within the DCA Office of Professional Examination Services for working to develop, deploy, and evaluate the survey results. I note that attachment 3 of the meeting materials include the presentation slides with a brief survey overview results of the brief survey results. And the floor is yours to provide a brief summary. And
Hi, thank you. They're loading the slides.
while the slides are loading, I would like to remind our members today's meeting is going to be a little long, so get your coffees, teas, whatever snacks ready to go. We're here for a little bit a long day. All right, there it is, the slide.
Okay, thank you. So continuing our theme of presentations, I am going to go pretty quickly because really the end is really kind of where we need to go. I guess we'll give it just one more moment. Look at the preview you're getting. Okay, I'm going to start because the information is in there, and then once it's set up, we'll go. So as President O indicated, we did have over 1,500 individuals that responded. There's a slide in there that indicates that 201 were not licensed in California, another 348 were not actively practicing, and then another 49 indicated that they were licensed in California, but they didn't respond to many of the questions. So when we're looking at the responses to the survey, we're really looking at a population of over 4,500 responses that were surveyed, and do totally want to thank our colleagues at the Office of Professional Examination Services for lending their expertise in a number of these slides that are a little bit more complicated. So in terms of some of the basic demographics of it, you'll see, we did ask whether or not you were a pharmacist in charge. Again, trying to understand kind of like who the respondents were, some of the demographic information. So if we can go to that next slide, please. We also asked whether or not they currently supervise a pharmacy technician. The vast majority of respondents did. Next slide, please. We also asked, when we're looking at ratio, we have to also understand, next slide, please. We also need to understand how many other individuals pharmacists are responsible for. As President O discussed, within the pharmacy, not only do you have the licensed pharmacy technicians, but you have a number of unlicensed individuals that are also in the pharmacy for which the pharmacist is responsible for. So this again provides just kind of the aggregate information of the number of staff that you also supervise in addition to the pharmacy technician. Next slide, please. We also asked about individuals that maybe do not supervise, and these are the various work settings for those, but you'll notice that there are In terms of the overall response rate, the vast majority of people do supervise technicians. Next slide, please. This indicates the number of work sites that do currently utilize pharmacy technicians, which again is the vast majority. Next slide. So looking at kind of what that breakdown is on the types of work sites that use pharmacy technicians, and this is really just based on how the pharmacists self-reported their primary work site. So you'll notice that the vast majority of them are really in that community pharmacy setting, either the chain or the non-chain, as well as the inpatient, which I don't think is a surprise to anyone. Next slide. We also asked about whether or not additional services are provided. And so this is a breakdown, and you'll see about half indicated that there are immunizations or other different types of clinical services that are provided throughout the day. Next slide. And then we also asked a little bit about technology. Next slide. So when we're looking at, sorry, this slide is a little wonky here, but when we look at the technicians, you know, we regulate community pharmacy as a whole group, but there are different subsets. And so this next slide was looking to see for those respondents that suggest that they work in a closed door pharmacy. Next slide. We also asked about whether or not there are overlapping hours, because that sometimes will drive then potentially the number of technicians that are present in a pharmacy at a time, as that ratio does increase after that with the addition of a second pharmacist. Next slide. This also speaks to the volume, the average prescription volume for a typical day. And you'll see the frequency of responses based on those average numbers. And again, this is for all respondents. So this is not parsed out by work settings or anything else. Next slide. So this next slide, I'm hoping that someone can fix it so that it's faced the correct way, because this is kind of where we probably really need to spend a little bit of time in response to those survey responses. Is it possible to get that fixed? Okay, so what the slide is showing, and you can, just turn your head a little bit, is whether or not you believe the current pharmacist to pharmacy technician ratio in the non-institutional setting, which is currently 1-to-1, is appropriate. And then you can see the responses. So, over 1,000 individuals that responded indicated that they believe that the current 1-to-1 is appropriate. However, over 1,200 indicated that perhaps the more appropriate should be a 1-to-2 ratio. And then you can see the additional responses that kind of taper off from there. Next slide. So we asked the same question: do you believe the current pharmacist to pharmacy technician ratio in an institutional setting, which is currently 1-to-2, is appropriate? And you notice a vast majority of respondents, over 2,000, indicated that the 1-to-2 is appropriate. Next slide. We asked whether or not you believe a pharmacist believes that they could provide more comprehensive patient care if the number of pharmacy technicians a pharmacist can supervise is increased. And not surprising, the answer was yes. Next slide. So then we kind of broke it down a little bit by work site. We just did community chain and non-chain and inpatient, but one of the things that we're hoping to gain from members of the committee today is whether or not you want us to parse out some of this data a little bit more. Next slide. Next slide, please. So the next question is, if the board increased the number of pharmacy technicians a pharmacist could supervise, do you believe the PIC should be required to make a specific determination? And you'll see that the majority of individuals indicated that yes, the PIC should ultimately make that determination. So kind of what could that look like? That could look like the law saying that, the ratio may be, 1-to-3, but the exact number must be made by the PIC making that ultimate determination. Next slide, please. And then the next question was specific to whether or not, if there was an increase in the number of pharmacy technicians that can be supervised by a pharmacist, do you believe the pharmacist should have the authority to refuse to supervise the additional pharmacy techs? Because that's currently a provision in the law. And you'll notice that, again, the vast majority of individuals indicated that yes, even if the authority for the ratio to increase, if that is in fact increased, pharmacist, based on the survey responses, seem to indicate that the pharmacist should still maintain the ability to refuse to supervise an additional tech. Next slide. So these next slides actually get a little bit more complicated. And again, big shout out to OPES for helping us do the analysis here. So we took a look to see whether or not the ratio and the responses to what people believe the appropriate ratio should be varies if you're in a position of management or an administrative position and if you are a PIC. So the next 8 slides really kind of take a deeper dive into that information based on individuals that indicated that they are, in this case, in a management or administrative position within their employer. So in this case, 997 people identified that they were in that fall within that category. And then do you believe that the current pharmacist to pharmacy technician ratio, in this case, in the institutional setting, is appropriate? And the majority indicated that no, they did not believe that the current 1-to-2 ratio is appropriate. Next slide. We also asked about that in the non-institutional setting, and you'll notice that the vast majority of individuals, again, serving in that management or administrative position for their employer, indicated that they do not believe that 1-to-1 is appropriate for the non-institutional setting. Next slide. So this gives a breakdown of how the respondents indicated they believe the appropriate ratio should be, in this case for the non-institutional setting. And you'll see so that 1-to-3 is that 41.5% is the appropriate ratio. And then the second most frequent was 29.6 indicated that they believe that the PIC should be establishing what that ratio is. And again, these are for respondents that self-identified as being in a management or administrative position for their employer. Next slide, please. So we also asked if, again, for those individuals in a management or administrative position for their employer, what they believe the most appropriate ratio is for the non-institutional setting. And you'll notice that 1-to-2 ratio received the highest number of responses, followed by the 1-to-3, and then again, it being designated or delegated to the PIC to make that determination. Next slide, please. So then same way we ask those same questions for the PIC. So if you were the designated PIC at your work site, we asked, do you believe the current pharmacist to pharmacy technician ratio in the institutional setting is appropriate? And you'll notice again, the majority indicated that no, it is not appropriate. Next slide. Asking that same question about the non-institutional setting. And again, 82% of pharmacists that identified as being the designated PIC indicate that they do not believe that the current ratio of 1-to-1 is appropriate. Next slide. So then similar to what we did with the administrative positions, this is the breakdown of individuals that identified as the PIC in their primary work site. What do they believe is the appropriate ratio? This slide shows in the institutional setting. And so we've got 1-to-3 as the highest results, followed by delegation to the PIC. And then the next slide, which is the final slide, if you are the PIC, if you designated or that you are the PIC at your primary work site, what did they believe is the appropriate ratio in the non-institutional setting? And you'll see that 41% indicate that it should be a 1-to-2, followed by 26% saying that the ratio should be 1-to-3, and then 20% indicating that they felt it should be established by the PIC. And so with that, that kind of concludes it. If there's additional data that the members are interested in learning more about, we'd be happy to go back and partner again with OPES and see what we can provide for you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Anne. Did not come today to expect to exercise head turning, but it's okay. We'll let it slide. We're gonna go for this survey. We're gonna try to talk about this result a little bit. To me, it's very interesting, including the responses specifically from pharmacists that identified as either in management positions or serving as a PIC. Also, as I open up for discussion, I want to highlight, as the meeting materials note, there is a pending legislation that, if enacted as in current form, will change the pharmacist to pharmacist technician ratio to 1-to-6, as that measure is agendized for discussion tomorrow as part of the Legislation and Regulation Committee today I would just want us to keep the discussion focused on the results and where maybe this committee feels like where the ratio might be, we are able to support in changing. If there are any additional data points that also would be helpful to members that can be drawn from the survey results, please let Ann and I know. I would appreciate it. With that, I will open this up to members for your comments and thoughts and suggestions, questions. I'm leaning toward possibly opening up this discussion to exploring, are there some ratios at maybe a little bit higher, maybe possibly 1-2 with the allowance for PIC to prohibit that if the PIC determines or something along that line. Jesse, go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Sung, and thank you, Ann, and staff for taking this data and making it so easy to read. I am not entirely surprised that the ratio from like a management or PIC position tends to be higher, and I would actually be curious to see if staff could actually kind of do the opposite thing. So the pharmacists who are not in a management or administrative position, if we could get graphs or data on what those pharmacists believe that the ratio should be, I think that would give us a better perspective overall. The other thing too that wasn't really attached to the survey, and it's just the issue of liability with supervising additional technicians. So I'm not sure how much pharmacists fully understand that technicians aren't autonomous, in that if a technician makes a mistake or makes some sort of error, that their license can't really be held accountable under the law. From my understanding anyway, because they're not autonomous. And so I think as we continue this discussion, keeping the liability portion at the forefront is important. But yeah, I think that just extra taking that data and seeing how the non-administrative and management positions had surveyed would be helpful for me, I think.
Thank you, Jesse. Members, we can also go back to the comments after we hear public comment. I would imagine there will be significant public comment on this as well. So if members, any other comments before we move on to opening up for public comment? I would imagine we'll have some comments on this. Okay, any Sacramento public comment, Ann or Julie?
No.
Okay, all right. We're ready for public comment in WebEx.
All right, we are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise that hand by tapping the hand button at the bottom of your screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. You are also welcome to type the word comment into the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, and we will address those requests as well. Want to remind everybody, don't be afraid to put those hands up as soon as you feel like it. As long as the comments are on the current agenda item, which we're on agenda item 6, we'll happily take your comment. And our first request is coming from Richard Dang. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak with a 10-second warning.
Association. Thank you to the board for putting the survey together. We've been talking about it at the previous meetings and summarizing the results. So far, based on the results that we've seen, it seems pretty consistent with the feedback that we receive from our members within the association. We've also been holding some committee discussions and small group discussions with both frontline staff and some managers over the last few weeks, and it seems pretty consistent with the results that we're seeing in the survey results. So that is very affirming to know and good information to have. As far as parsing the data out a little bit more, I might be curious. I think I would echo Jessica's request that it might be good to know the results from a non-management perspective as well, as far as those who are not serving as a PIC and not management, since they are the ones working on the front line and probably have a more realistic understanding of what their workload might be and what their needs might be. So I think it might be good to see if there's some concurrence there with that particular population. The other maybe question and request is we did see some subgroup analysis with the individuals working in management and their racial preference for institutional and for non-institutional settings. But I wonder if those were also broken down by workplace setting. For example, a manager in an institutional setting might not have the understanding of what's appropriate as a manager in a non-institutional setting. So I would be curious to know if that was broken down, and if not, if that could be another request for additional data so that we can get more targeted information from the individuals who are currently working in that environment to get a more accurate picture of the opinions of the appropriate ratio. Thank you for the opportunity for comment, and thank you for the survey.
Thank you, Dr. Dang. Thanks for the great comment and suggestion.
All right. And as a reminder to our mobile device users, if you're having trouble finding that hand button, please tap the ellipses button, that dot, dot, dot at the bottom to find the appropriate page. Next, we're going to hear from Lindsay Gallahoon. Hold on just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you. Good morning. Lindsay Goldhorn here today on behalf of the California Community Pharmacy Coalition. Very much appreciate the board conducting this survey, and as was discussed, do note that most respondents believe that the current 1-to-1 ratio in non-institutional settings is not appropriate and that more comprehensive care could be provided with an increased ratio. And the CCPC absolutely agrees with this. And as you've heard me state before, we believe a broad expansion of the ratio is necessary. Even a change to 1-to-2 broadly or 1-to-3 would make a significant difference in day-to-day pharmacy operations. Also want to note that we've looked at data across the country and haven't seen any data showing that an increase in the ratio would jeopardize patient care. In California, the role of the technician remains well defined, and they must adhere to strict training and certification requirements. So we really think that modifying the ratio will allow pharmacists to utilize more well-qualified pharmacy technicians that they can safely supervise to meet the needs of their patients. And also, I think we all know this, but the change in the ratio doesn't have to be, and I don't think would be, a mandate. It's an authorization for pharmacists to supervise additional technicians if needed, but not a requirement that all pharmacists have to do that. And as has been discussed, it could be modeled so that the PIC could determine the ratio based on their level of comfortability. So again, just strongly believe that the ratio should be modified to allow practicing pharmacists to provide more services and be more accessible to patients while utilizing the expertise of their technicians to assist them in performing the needed administrative tasks that are necessary to supply prescription drugs to customers in a timely manner. Thank you.
Thank
For the
you.
comments, Lindsay.
My apologies about the name, Lindsay. Next, we're going to hear from Keith Yoshizuka. Hold on just a moment, Keith.
All right, there we go. Keith Yoshizuka. I want to thank you for the opportunity. As Dr. O alluded to earlier, with the current SB 1365 from Senator Glazer, he introduced legislation to increase the ratio of techs to pharmacists 6-to-1, which coincidentally is similar to the standard in the state of Montana. But as Dr. O notably pointed out, the definition of technician in Montana is vastly different. It includes anyone that works in the pharmacy, including cashiers, clerk typists. So I think that the findings of the board survey and the recommendations of the board would be meaningful to Senator Glazer's office, with the possibility to amend his current bill, and might expedite the process of initiating the statutory change. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment, Dr. Yoshizuka.
All right. And next, we're going to hear from Jesse Gerwal. I hope I said that correctly. Please let us know. I'm sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Hi, this is Jassy Graywall with UFCW. Appreciate the opportunity to make comment and the presentation of the survey results. Just wanted to make a couple comments. Just want to echo Board Member Crowley's comments around having a further breakdown of the non-management data. I think it would be helpful to hear from non-management some more specifics around the survey results. And then just a couple other flags. I think to the previous commenter's point around an overall cap of employees behind the counter. Currently, there is no cap around clerks that can be behind the counter of a chain pharmacy. And so I think it would be helpful to know from pharmacists, would they like, in addition to potentially an increase in the ratio, would they like a capping of other ancillary staff that is in the pharmacy, or are they okay with the current model of allowing unlimited clerks / cashiers behind the counter? I think we want to be mindful of not too many folks behind the counter and making sure that the pharmacist still has the capability of supervising all the employees that are there. And then lastly, just wanted to note that I think it would be helpful to know what other protections pharmacists and pharmacy staff might want if there was an increase in the ratio. To Board Member Crowley's point around liability, like what are some of the protections that pharmacists might want related to liability? Are there other protections that pharmacists might need to see if there is an increase in their duty to supervise additional employees? So I think it would be helpful to know from pharmacists. And then lastly, as UFCW does also represent technicians, we had several technicians that were also interested in sharing their perspective around changing the ratio, which isn't captured in the survey, which we understand, but I think it would also be helpful to hear from pharmacy technicians their thoughts about increasing the ratio, and would they like additional protections if there are additional folks behind the counter, and what their duties would look like for the pharmacies that offer ancillary services versus the pharmacies that don't offer ancillary services. But appreciate the opportunity to comment today.
Thank you for the comment, Jazzy.
All right, next we're going to hear from Stephen Gray. Hold on just a moment. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you again. Just for clarification, I heard that Jesse indicated, and another commenter indicated that there was a concern about liability. And as I've mentioned before, whenever liability is mentioned, there needs to be clarified for the audience and for the board members what kind of liability they're talking about. Administrative liability is actions by the Board of Pharmacy, and that has been shown in previous surveys to be the main concern of pharmacists, is that technicians are not subject to administrative liability by policy historically of the Board of Pharmacy when they make an error. As far as civil liability, they are subject to liability. You can sue the pharmacist, the pharmacy technician, anybody that's in the pharmacy that may have had some impact on the event. So always when you talk about liability, please clarify that. And again, as I mentioned, administrative liability and holding the technicians responsible is completely up to the policies of the Board of Pharmacy. The other thing I want to mention is that when the current ratio was created back in the 90s, after we actually created officially an outpatient pharmacy technician, when the law changed, it was all in relation to consultation on prescriptions. And that ratio was worked out as a compromise, actually in my conference room, between Retail Clerks Union at that time, now UFCW, and other members of the profession and the various practice settings. And the biggest concern from the staff was not that they supervised or had liability. Their concern was the loss of jobs. Back then, the law literally said only a pharmacist could take the bottle from the shelf, only a pharmacist could put the label on the vial and put the pills in the bottle, and only a pharmacist could mix and repackage. If you look at the definition now of a pharmacy technician duties, those are the exact things listed in the regulation that differentiate a pharmacist from a clerk. So once again, I think it's important to know the history and to know that I think the concern about jobs is real, but I don't think it's should interfere. And the reason I say that is our experience at Kaiser Permanente in my 30 to 40 plus years there was that when the ratio was increased, in other words, when we got that next two technicians on duty, the pharmacists were much more likely to participate in patient prescription consultation. It freed up the pharmacist to get involved in prescription consultation. And the study we did proved that that saved hospitalizations, emergency room visits, and even civil liability claims by having consultation. And that's why Kaiser supported it so strongly. So I think those are just points of information I think the board members should be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, as always, Dr. Gray.
All right, we're going to take a last look around, but I think that's it. Those were all of our requests for public comment.
Thank you, David. All right, members, back to us today for our discussion. We don't have to come up with any answers. This is just a presentation, and any additional information you would like to solicit from this data, and as well as anything else that'll help us determine on any course of next actions, as I am forecasting that this issue will just be wrapped into our sunset issue. Jason, your hand is raised.
Thanks, Hung. I really don't know where we go from here. I wanted to make my point of view known that clearly the ratio is too low. I think that there is capacity to increase the ratio. I certainly would like to know, get some feedback from pharmacists that are not in management. I think that would be illustrious to the conversation. And we will see what happens with legislation tomorrow. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Any other member comments?
Yes, Hung. I just want to say it was very interesting looking over the graphs and hearing from the testimony, and I think there looks to be a good area of middle ground here between obviously the ratio we currently have and the one that's been proposed, that's 1 to 6, because it seems like the PICs don't even think that that is necessary. And so I think there's a lot of really a really good meat to this issue where we can figure out what makes sense both in terms of workplace protections, expanding the ratio, and making sure we're not sacrificing consumer quality at the same time. So seems like there's a lot of room for consensus on this.
Agreed. Thank you for the comment. Any other comments? I'm very looking forward to all of you who are in that committee to have that discussion. So have a field day, have fun. Looking forward to getting the report back at the full board meeting on that. All right, with that, we are ready to move on. We'll keep you all apprised. We'll bring back this discussion with additional data points at our next meeting. And as you can imagine, that there is an opportunity for us to continue to have this discussion, as this discussion will be mainly wrapped into the sunset discussion, as well as possibly discussion from tomorrow, however legislation and regulation committee decides to pursue. Okay, so next agenda item 7, discussion and consideration of implementation of Senate Bill 339, Chapter 1, Statutes of 2024, related to HIV PrEP, pre-exposure prophylaxis, and post-exposure prophylaxis, including draft emergency regulation. The meeting materials include background. Sorry, David. Whoever's doing the slide, I think we're moving on. Yeah, thank you. The meeting materials provide background information and the relevant law, so I'll keep my comments brief. In response to recently enacted legislation, the board must pursue emergency regulation to implement the expanded provisions for pharmacists furnished HIV PrEP. As we begin our discussion, I note that with recent passage of Assembly Bill 317 related to reimbursement, I'm hopeful that some of the barriers to implementation that have previously been identified, including for pharmacists furnished care such as PrEP and PEP, have been addressed or hopefully will be addressed, and to allow access for patients with commercial health plans. Also, I'd like to thank the experts with the Office of AIDS and the California Department of Healthcare Services, pharmacist experts that have provided input, as well as the Medical Board Executive Director and Medical Board President, Dr. Hawkins, for their consultation and review of the proposed emergency and permanent regulations. The language included in Attachment 4 incorporates the feedback from many individuals. I have been informed by staff that the medical board has no concerns or edits to the language. Also, as emergency regulations are not something the board generally pursues, I want to remind members that Jennifer Robbins, DCA Regulation Counsel, is available to assist if we have any questions. And lastly, want to quickly remind members and the public to be mindful as we discuss this issue. The pharmacists are routinely providing healthcare in a very prescriptive manner for many years because of specifically how it's provided in the law. As healthcare professionals, I believe it is appropriate to start empowering pharmacists to rely on their judgment, their professional judgment, when providing patient care. I say this mainly to caution us not to be overly prescriptive and also in light of what we have agendized, a few agenda items today later on where we'll discuss standard of care. So I appreciate the proposed draft changes and believe they are appropriate without being overly prescriptive. Members, I welcome your thoughts on the proposed text and note that the meeting material and meeting slide offer a very long potential motion. As part of your comments, I would entertain a motion if you believe such action is appropriate. Members? Trevor?
As President Sung, I would like to move as an emergency exists by law, recommend initiation of emergency rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations Title 16, Section 1747 as proposed or consistent with the committee's discussion, and a regular rulemaking to make the regulation amendments permanent. Authorize the executive officer to further refine the language consistent with the committee's discussion and to make any non-substantive changes prior to presenting the proposed emergency and regular rulemakings to the board.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chandler. I would imagine the Reg Council will ask us as proposed or consistent with the committee discussion. So as your motion right now is as proposed, correct, Trevor?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second for Member Chandler's motion?
This is Renee. I'll second.
Thank you, Renee. Appreciate it. With that, we're ready for public comment. Sacramento? I'm seeing no public comment. We'll move to WebEx. David?
We are open for public comment on the motion. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And it looks like from the Q&A box, we have Stephen Gray. Bear with me just a moment. I'm going to find you in the list. And send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you again. First of all, let me comment that I strongly support this effort, strongly support the urgency and the urgency of the legislation and proceeding quickly as required with regulation amendments. I would comment, however, that the wording of the regulation, the change, the subsection C, does indicate that the records of the treatment of these patients be maintained for a minimum of 3 years. I think we've long past the point of only keeping records based on inventory management, which is obviously in the law and many other sections for inventory management, the requirement for 3 years. But we're now getting into areas where it is a record of how well the patient's health was treated, how much was done appropriately. And I don't believe that 3 years is long enough. I don't believe that any other healthcare practitioner that treats patients would be satisfied with only keeping a record for 3 years. And even as we think of the other things that are pending before the board, which is the maintenance of error rates, I think we need to go beyond 3 years as a minimum of keeping healthcare treatment records. And not just think of it as an inventory record. So I would urge the board to consider changing that term away from 3 years to something that's much more realistic. For an example, under HIPAA law, there's a requirement that patients have access to their records of what was disclosed for 8 years. And Medicare law requires the keeping of any records regarding the treatment of a patient for a minimum of 10 years. And Medi-Cal law has its own longer periods. And I just don't think continuing with the 3-year standard is appropriate as we move into patient care records and decisions made by pharmacists on that patient care. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Dr. Gray, giving us a lot of food for thoughts for many other items.
And this is the moderator. That was our only request for comment.
Thank you. With that, motion a second and public comment. We're ready for vote. Trevor, how do you vote?
This is Jesse. I do have a
Hi,
couple
Jesse.
comments to that.
Yeah, hi, Jesse.
I actually agree with that comment. I think that the record retention should be longer, and we should continue that discussion of longer record holding as when it comes to providing clinical services. And I do just have a question on the language. I know that it's definitely we're trying to steer away from such restrictive language. My question is, does the language as drafted essentially go further than what SB 339 allowed or approved? Does this give more flexibility? Is it like less restrictive? I'm just trying to figure out if this is going beyond the drafted language in SB 339 in terms of what can be done and furnished from a pharmacist.
I don't think so, but I'll have Anne, who worked extensively with other staff, respond to that. Anne?
Yeah, so probably should be counsel, but that's never stopped me before. I believe that the language, Jesse, can, but by definition, it cannot go beyond what the statute provides. And really what this regulation is intended to do is to discuss a little bit the training requirement that's already existing, and then that records to reflect the changes that occurred in the statute. So I do not believe that it goes beyond anything within the statute itself, but Jennifer is on and she can probably do a far better job of responding.
Is Jennifer the J?
Oh.
Okay. Very anonymous looking over there, Jennifer.
My apologies. It wouldn't let me type too much in before I entered the meeting.
Okay.
Keyboard issues this morning. But speaking specifically to your question, the changes to the statute, specifically to Business Professions Code section 4052.02E5, specifically speaks to ensuring that the patients are not provided the pre-exposure prophylaxis more than once every 2 years, unless a pharmacist goes through specific other steps. And so to ensure that the pharmacists have the records that they need in order to provide the patients with the medication and the services that they need, the language of the regulation, the proposed language of the emergency regulation was specifically tailored to ensure that those records would be housed for a minimum of 3 years.
Thank you, Jennifer. Jesse, does that answer your concern?
No. No, I think my question was more about the roles and what this would actually allow in terms of, like the 90-day limitation and things like that, because it's just not clear the way that this is. But
just to clarify that 1747 is a currently existing regulation. Again, I'm sorry, I'm not an attorney either. I just speaking. Here we go. So only part that is amending is section really C. So the other part is already there because this is the law that has existed already, as you know. So that we're not really going beyond what the statute change is allowing pharmacists to do. We're just trying to keep a minimum of what the training requirement is, and that is just basically keeping that same. What the pharmacist is allowed to do is just based on the statute of what the amended statute allows them to do. So it's kind of harmonizing it, in my opinion, in my view. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes sense. And I think that is definitely necessary. I would still ask that the record if the other committee members are okay with it, the record retention requirement be expanded. Just thinking from a regulatory standpoint, when things and cases come to us, sometimes it's years down the line. And so I would want to make sure that all those records are maintained, just in case, and so it's accessible as much as possible.
I would be open to that. That now 3 years has just been such a standard for Board of Pharmacy for California in so many records, and that's why I just alluded to that. The great food for thought. I am all open to it. I think that it would just be a little bit of a change of how we look at it, and I think that maybe a bigger discussion we could have, possibly for sunset. Sorry, Anne, don't kill me, but just something that we might want to have a more holistic approach, because what I don't like is to have this random years that just for one thing. I personally don't think that that's good. For our licensees and just for consumers both, where it just causes a lot of confusion. So that's where I'm a little hesitant. I'm completely okay if the members want to do what, I mean, we can throw in the numbers, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. But anyway, I'll let Jason speak. Jason?
Thanks, Hung. I am in support of the motion, but I wanted to reiterate what you had said. I think that it'd be smart to take a more holistic approach to this and not change retention rates and requirements piecemeal. Thanks.
Your thoughts, Jesse, on that? Are you okay? Like,
Yeah,
kind of
I'm okay
looking
with
at
that.
the
I mean,
bigger
I think we can probably have a bigger discussion at the full board meeting, and maybe in the meantime, if staff could kind of take a look at what the record retention is from like medical boards or physician
Yep.
assistant boards, I think that would give us a better perspective on what standard is in different industries.
Sounds good. Renee?
I just wanted to add, kind of in support of what Jessica is also referring to, and from the comments from Stephen Gray. And while 3 years is such a standard for so many things, I think as more latitude is given to the pharmacists and involving patient care, and then just the thought of outcomes, somebody wanting to look back, and not that we have to be consistent with HIPAA or Medicare, but I think it's just something that probably really needs to be discussed. And like was mentioned, reviewing what are some other standards in other professions in terms of this type of data.
Okay, and please don't kill me, but I think we're gonna tackle record retention as a holistic level in the sunset. So we'll just add that to our next. But again, I don't want to get too far out of the agendized discussion. So Jennifer is raising hand. So sorry, Jennifer. I just want to call Jay. Sorry.
Oh no, sorry,
Jay.
it's okay. If I may, I just wanted to point out that in the existing pharmacy regulations, specifically in section 1707.1A2, there's a general records requirement to maintain patient records for at least 1 year. So the aim was to ensure that the records would be kept for a minimum of 3 years, but happy to discuss the extension of time. It was just to ensure that at the very least, the records were kept beyond the 1 year minimum that's already in the regulations in another section.
Thank you. Okay, with that, there's a motion and second in public comments, so I'm going to call for a vote. Trevor?
Yes.
Thank you, Renee.
Yes.
Thank you, Jesse.
Yes.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes.
Thank you, and I vote yes. The motion passes, and I think that there may be a great opportunity for us to have a bigger discussion in terms of record retention overall, and we'll have opportunity possibly to review that in, not sure if this is the right committee, but we'll decide that later on. Okay, next, agenda item 8, discussion and consideration of possible amendment to California Code of Regulation Title 16, Section 1713, related to the use of automated drug delivery systems. Members, the meeting materials detail the relevant laws related to this agenda item. Most related to our discussion today is Business and Professions Code Section 4427.6 provides specific requirements for the use of automated patient dispensing system, also referred to as an APDS, and specifically subdivision F, as in Frank, provides that all prescribed drugs and devices dispensed to a patient from an APDS shall be accompanied by a consultation conducted by a pharmacist licensed by the board via a telecommunications link that has two-way audio and video. This requirement became effective in 2019 as part of Senate Bill 1447, Chapter 666, Statutes of 2018. Also related is California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1713, specifically Subdivision D, which provides authority for a pharmacy to use an APDS to deliver medications to a patient under specified conditions. One such condition is that an immediate consultation with a pharmacist be provided upon the request of the patient, either in person or via telephone. Section 1713 was amended in 2019 to make some conforming changes based on the provisions of Senate Bill 1447. However, the proposed changes to the regulation text at that time did not differentiate the technology requirements consistent with the statutory requirements. This has led to some confusion among stakeholders about when two-way audio and video is required, consistent with the Business and Profession Code Section 4427.6 and the regulation. To provide clarity to the regulated public, it is recommended that the board amend Section 1713D to be more specific to licensees and consolidate both technology requirements in a single location to allow for ease of use and ensure a common understanding of the two legal requirements. Appreciate the recommendation offered by staff and agree with the proposed changes included in Attachment 5. Members, as I open up the discussion, I welcome your comments and note that the meeting materials and the meeting slide include possible motion. As part of your questions, I'd also entertain a motion if you believe such action is appropriate. Members?
Hi, Sung, this is Jessie. I don't know if I was the only one, but the language is still a little bit confusing and a little like clunky to me. I don't know if anyone else felt that. But if I'm the only one that feels that way, then I'm happy to make the motion.
I also felt that way, Jessica. I
Thank you.
feel like it's I was really trying to I think, yeah, I just think it's awkward.
Any suggestions?
I tried to rewrite it honestly, but it was a little difficult to do. But I'll try to think about it more.
Renee, any suggestion?
I same as Jessica, I was trying to take those and reposition, but I feel like that starting off in addition, this it just throws it off, but I feel like the emphasis here is really that when a prescription drug is dispensed to the patient from an APDS for the first time, like in addition to receiving the, maybe in addition to receiving a patient receiving a consultation, like and then has to be via the link two-way audio and video. Yeah, I feel like that's like a better format, because it really brings home for the first time, and it has to be, it has to be a consultation, and it has to be this way. I don't know. That's what I was kind of going with, although I didn't quite. I mean, in order to get all of that, there seems like there's more than one sentence there.
Should it just say when a prescription drug is dispensed to the patient from an APDS for the first time as required in BPC 4427.6? The consultation shall be provided via telecommunication link that has two-way audio and video. Would that make it a little bit more?
That sounds like it provides clarity, and I just don't know if you're, missing any of the words that we need to have in, and maybe Jennifer can say something about that.
This is Anne. I apologize. Could I read something that might potentially work?
Sure, Anne, go ahead. You're
A
the
patient,
magic of the word, magician of the words.
no, not at all, but let's see. We'll give it a whirl here. A patient shall receive consultation by a pharmacist from an APDS for the first time the prescribed drug is dispensed as specified in Business and Professions Code Section 4427.6A via a telecommunications link that has two-way audio and video. Further, the pharmacy is able to provide an immediate consultation with the pharmacist either in person or via telephone upon the request of the patient.
That sounds perfect, and I think that that's much clearer, at least from my perspective, than the way that it's currently proposed.
Your word magician is approved. And so, Renee, do you approve?
That was provided a lot more clarity.
Okay, thank you. All right, Jennifer, your hand is up. Are you okay with our wordsmithing here?
One thing I wanted to caution the board on is that sometimes OAL considers it to be unnecessary duplication of the statute to just put the words from the statute straight into the regulation. So the reason that it was crafted the way it was is to address that concern, but happy to give it another look.
I had a
before you like.
feeling. I had a feeling there was a reason why it was, but okay. I think, I think what we try to do is to make clarity for our licensed regulated public. And I think humbly, I do feel like what we came up with today is clearer for the regulated public. So I think it might be better that we at least try it. And then as the process goes through, we'll change whatever the
board would like to,
recommendation.
oh, sorry. If the board would like to try it that way, happy to. I just wanted to provide the advice that it could become an issue down the line.
Thank you. Okay, members, we're ready to vote on this motion. Move on with a motion. Anyone wants to make a motion as Anne suggested?
Hi, Sung. I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And you have it written down, right? So that, Jesse, if you can read the motion into the record, please.
Yep. I will recommend the initiation of a rulemaking to amend California Code of Regulations, Title 16, Section 1713, as written by Anne. Authorize the executive officer to further refine the language consistent with the committee's discussion and to make any not substantive, sorry, it's cut off on mine, that last part.
Changes.
Non-substantive changes prior to presenting the proposed rulemaking to the board. Were those the words
Thank
that were
you.
coming? Yeah. May I ask for one friendly consideration? Instead of as approved by Anne, would you mind just
Yes.
saying consistent with the committee's discussion?
Yes, consistent with the committee's discussion. Sorry, Anne.
Thank you. Any second for Jesse's motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Renee. All right, with that, we're ready for public comment. And David.
We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment on agenda item 8 and this motion, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. And from the Q&A box, I see Stephen Gray. Hold on just a moment. We're going to send you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you again. I completely agree that this is two separate thoughts. One thought is, as required by statute, that when the prescription is first dispensed, it needs to be a two-way audio video communication capability. And certainly, the technology is there to, make that part of the APDS. But the second thought is that when maybe the patient doesn't have the capability of doing a video, but still wants to have consultation. which may or may not be simultaneous with the dispensing. So in consideration of this and in presenting it to OAL, that may be, an explanation of what the board is trying to get at. Also, from a construction point of view, you may want to just flip-flop it and talk about the ability to have a telephone consultation first, and then say, in addition to the requirement of the audio-visual dual capability. Just my thoughts on that language, because it is confusing. Thank you.
Thank you for the comments, Dr. Gray.
Looking around, that was our only request for comment.
All right, thank you, David. And I don't see anyone in Sacramento for the record. So we're ready for a vote. Trevor, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Renee, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Jesse. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, Jason. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you, and I vote yes. Motion passes. It's just the first step of this regulation package, which will have to be fully voted on at the full board meeting in a couple of weeks, just to get started. Long ways to go. Agenda item 9, discussion and consideration of proposal to establish authority to waive the renewal fee requirement for pharmacist license over 50 years. As you may recall, that following a request from the public, the board referred this item to this committee for consideration. Background information is included in the meeting materials. But to summarize, public comment suggested that the board consider development of a step-down licensure process for pharmacists getting ready to retire. It was suggested through public comment that the board consider possibly the approach used by Nevada. As included in the meeting materials, a pharmacist that has been registered with Nevada for at least, I hope I'm saying Nevada correctly, at least 50 years is not required to pay renewal fees after that time. Based on the number of pharmacists that have currently been licensed for over 50 years in California, such a change could result in a loss of revenue to the board of about $250,000 annually. Based on the number of currently licensed pharmacists that have been licensed at least 50 years, I believe the loss of revenue would not have too significant of a negative impact to the board's fund. As I open this up for discussion, I note that if we believe such change is appropriate, I can work with staff before the July meeting to develop statutory proposal. Also, so that this could be included in the board's sunset report. Members, your thoughts, agreement, disagreement, concerns, please feel free to share.
So, first off, it's Nevada with a Nevada. But my only concern is I know we just went through the fee updating our fees to make sure that the board in general remains solvent going forward, and I know that was a big move to make sure that we were accounting for everything. So while this sounds right, I'm just worried about adding in any additional loss of revenue, as we want to make sure that we're building the reserves we need just to maintain functioning. So I'm kind of 50-50. I'm like 51% on just leaving everything as it is, because I don't want to risk us. I want to make sure that we continue to build the reserves that are required for our functioning. So that's where my mind. I'm not hard on one way or another, but that's where I'm leaning on this.
Thank you for that comment, Trevor. I am in alignment with you. Just unsure. Other members, please share your thoughts.
Hey, hi, Sog. This is Jason. Has staff looked into other ways of achieving what we want to accomplish here? We want to be able to reactivate experienced licensees. Really, I think that's what we wanted during COVID. Have we looked at other approaches? Having someone, I don't know, within 2-5 years of going inactive to reactivate, is that possible? Something like
sure,
that?
Jason. Great comment. And as you can expect, Anne has done some digging in this matter. And so I think looking at other possible ways, this was determined to be most feasible. But of course, I will let her speak. And
So I think that we generally draw a distinction between a retired license and one that is reactivated. So we did, based on the comments, also look at the provisions because the commenter had specifically called or drawn attention to Nevada's model. So Nevada's model for reactivation is actually a little, has some additional requirements beyond what is required in California. So in California, when a pharmacist license goes inactive, they still pay the fee, but they do not earn CE. And then to reactivate the license, they need to demonstrate completion of CE. However, in Nevada, when a license goes inactive, to reactivate the license, they have to earn CE as well as pass a written examination on law that's provided by the Nevada board. So we felt like actually the reactivation process in Nevada appeared to be a little bit more involved than the current provisions, but drawing a distinction a little bit between a retired license and an inactive license, because the law does differentiate those.
just also so our committee members and the board knows that. And can you touch upon our current like inactive license, retired license, what that means, just
Yeah.
briefly?
So the difference generally between an inactive in California and a retired license is that an inactive license, you continue to pay the fees. You cannot exercise the privileges of the license. And you are then not required to maintain continuing education because you're not practicing. For someone that retires their license, right, they've made a decision to retire their license, they no longer pay any fees. And as such, to restore their pharmacist license, they need to meet all of the requirements in law at the time of reapplication.
Does that help, Jason, at all? Your thinking process here?
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty high threshold.
That's why it's okay. Any member thoughts on this matter? I guess we're not really having some clear consensus. So, Renee, Jesse, what are your thoughts? Help us
I'd
here.
this is Renee. I, in order to maybe allow for a sort of a backup or repository of pharmacists, should there be a sudden need, which would be good for the California population. However, depending on how long, so maybe if there was I think like it was mentioned, like 5 years, like within 5 years, but possibly I don't know if we make another designation, but possibly something like a reduced fee, like an inactive license for a certain amount of time is like or retired license. I know there's no fees, so I'm not really sure. I guess what I'm trying to get at is not necessarily the entire reduction of not, like this loss of revenue, but if it was something that they paid less for that possibility to reactivate and to work as a licensed pharmacist.
Are we gonna come up with catchy phrase? 50 years, 50% off? Are we doing that? I mean, 50% off? I mean, if that's where we are going, I think that's also, I mean, I think that they were just, they put so many years to it, and I think that we're just hoping to have some ways to take that burden off, as we all heard, retired folks. I think that they would like that possibility to re-engage if it's called upon them, but maintaining that fee is a little bit of a struggle. From what I'm hearing is that's what I heard, at least. So we could maybe not waive the whole thing, but reduce it. Jesse?
I
Renee?
agree. I'm kind of torn too, because I do think, You know, being a retired person is difficult enough. You know, the cost of living just keeps going up. And I want to make it as easy as possible for people, especially if there is an emergency, we need pharmacists. I would not want it to implement any sort of additional barrier to getting reactivated, like any exam. I do think there is a difference between someone who's been retired and not at practice for like 30 years versus 5 years or something. But I think we could probably find some middle ground, and I think a reduced fee is a good idea. But hopefully we'll have an ongoing discussion and get some feedback from people.
Okay, I think as of for today's discussion, we're not really clear, so maybe it's best that we do some further research and then get back to all of you. Trevor, go ahead.
Yeah, and as a part of this, I mean, my main focus is on the fiscal impact to the board, and so if as a part of the discussions among staff, if we could just get a firmer hold on how this might affect the fiscal health of the organization and our reserves, that would be helpful for me.
Thank you, Trevor. And just so we are all on the same page, this is going to be, there's currently already a retired status, but the quite a bit extensive step is there for them to reactivate their license. So hoping that this new kind of category is their license is active. They are a licensed pharmacist, but their fees would just be reduced is the kind of an idea that we were hoping to achieve today. So anyway, we'll have further discussion and we'll bring something for more discussion for the next meeting. All right, so it's 12:18. Its next agenda item is 10. I think this is a good time for us to take a lunch break.
President O, I apologize. Would you mind just opening up for public comment before the break?
Oh,
I
sure.
apologize.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anne. Sorry. Thank you. I'm just dying to have a little food. So David, if you can please open up for public comment.
Absolutely. We are open for public comment via WebEx. If you'd like to make a comment, please raise a hand by tapping that hand button at the bottom of the screen. Dial-in users dial *3 to raise a hand, and we will call on people in the order we have requests. As a reminder, we have a Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. If you'd like to make a comment, please type the word comment. And our first speaker is going to be Stephen Gray. And I want to caution people, if this is about the enunciation of Nevada versus Nevada, please suggest that during future agenda items. All right, Stephen.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Okay, there you go.
Thank you again. I think the agenda item got confused by having the two separate paragraphs in the materials. The first paragraph was really all about a cancellation of the renewal fee requirement, but continuing to practice once you're retired, or maybe a reduced fee, as was mentioned. I want to point out that there is, in many parts of the state, a shortage of pharmacists in certain areas. And retired pharmacists that work part-time are an important resource for providing patient care in those areas. And I call to your attention, for an example, in the Inland Empire, Coachella Valley, Palm Springs area, there are a lot of retired pharmacists that retire out there that only work part-time. And they work part-time in two ways. They fill in for overlapping shifts. They cover lunches, etc. They fill in at the end of the day. They work a half day on days like Saturday where it's not too busy. And then there's a phenomenon out there, and in some other places in the state and across the country, there are snowbird pharmacists that when the population of Palm Springs area triples during the high season, they work maybe 3 or 4 days a week to make sure that all the patients that are coming to that area have the ability to get pharmacist services. And that's very important. So think of it as a elimination of the renewal fee after 50 years or a reduced fee, because some of them are basically saying, well, gee, if I have to pay the whole fee and I'm only working 4 hours a week to cover some particular situation, it's really not worth it to me. So it does have an impact on patient care. And I don't think that the fiscal impact on the board should be the overriding factor. I think it's important. I understand that. But remember, having those pharmacists out there to provide care in not just that area, but other parts of the state where they fill in for partial shifts or partial days of the week. They fill in on telephone access on that 6th day, which is required by law when the pharmacy is only open 5 days. There's a lot of things that they fulfill their professional duties and are very helpful to society. So please reconsider just either eliminating the renewal fee or reduction in the fee, but we're still maintaining active status. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gray.
And next we're going to hear from Maria Lopez. Hold on just a moment, Maria. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone. All right, let's send a second request to Maria. All right, looks like we're making progress here.
The opportunity to speak. I just want to echo the.
We heard you. Go ahead,
believe
please.
that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Please start over.
Oh, yes. I just wanted to echo the prior comment. As a pharmacy owner now for almost 20 years, I really just, the first comment that was just the gentleman ahead of me, I would echo that and just say that I believe retired pharmacists are invaluable based on their experience and really add to the profession by teaching younger pharmacists or less experienced pharmacists. And just recently with the COVID-19 pandemic, I had two.
I think this
Immunizations. And so I think it's the.
Dr. Lopez, unfortunately, there may be a little choppy connection.
Oh, I just said they were very invaluable and helped during the pandemic with immunizations. And so I think if there's a way that we can support retired pharmacists to help in their capacity as they want to enjoy their lives in retirement, but also still give back to the profession, I think it's a good thing to support.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for the comments, Dr. Lopez.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we're going to hear from Keith Yoshizuka, followed by Max O. Hold on, Keith. We're sending you a request to unmute your microphone.
Thank you for the opportunity. I also want to speak in support of the proposition of either a reduced or eliminated renewal fee. As someone that's already retired, I remember speaking to one of my classmates who was quite jealous when I received my my certificate of recognition from the board for having been a pharmacist for 40 years, and he was complaining that he didn't get one, and come to find out it's because he hadn't renewed his license because he had retired. And this might be an incentive for folks to continue with their license, to continue to have them available. I think the renewal fee acts as a significant barrier, particularly if you're not going to be working full time. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments, Dr. Yoshizuka.
All right. Max, it looks like your hand went down. Please put it back up and we'll call on you. We're going to give you a few seconds before we continue on. And as a reminder, Since you're on a mobile device, you may need to hit the ... to find the appropriate page with your hand button. All right, Max, we're going to move on. We're going to take a last look for any requests. Seeing none, I think we're ready to continue.
Thank you, David. Appreciate it. Okay, we're ready for a lunch break, everyone. It's 12:26. We'll have to take at least 45-minute lunch break. So we'll come back, whatever the 45 minutes. Let's do probably 1:15 just to be safe. 1:15, is that right? 1:15 p.m. We'll return. 1:15. See you all back. Enjoy your lunch.